My name is Lauren Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and for more than a decade, I've been my family's personal ATM. As an accomplished architect running my own firm in Chicago, every frantic phone call or dramatic email from my family has always ended with me reaching for my wallet. 3 weeks ago, my mother called, her voice unusually warm and affectionate, asking me to fund the $20,000 deposit for their lavish 35th anniversary dinner at Eden Estate, one of Chicago's most exclusive venues. I didn't hesitate. After all, this was my family. Maybe this would finally be the event that would include me not just financially, but emotionally. Imagine my shock when I arrived at the beautifully illuminated venue carrying a meticulously wrapped gift worth thousands of dollars, only to be met by my father's stern face at the entrance. He narrowed his eyes in disdain and turned immediately to the security guard, his voice cold and unfeeling as he uttered words I never imagined hearing. "Remove this woman. She's not invited." I stood frozen in disbelief as whispers erupted around me. Guests stopped mid-conversation, eyes fixed on the humiliating scene unfolding before them. My cheeks burned with shame, my throat tightened, and tears threatened behind my carefully done makeup. I had no choice but to quietly turn around and walk back to my car, the exquisite gift heavy in my trembling hands. But as I drove away, feeling utterly broken, something else began to stir deep within me. A powerful determination I'd never felt before. The humiliation was real, but it sparked a fire that would soon ignite a chain reaction, forever altering my relationship with my family. If you've ever felt like nothing more than a financial lifeline to those who should love you unconditionally, leave a comment below and subscribe. Let me share my journey of heartbreak, awakening, and how I finally reclaimed my dignity and independence from those who used me for far too long. Growing up as the middle child between my effortlessly charming older sister Allison and my irresponsible younger brother Josh was like being invisible. My parents, Gregory and Cynthia Bennett, never pretended otherwise. Allison was their golden girl, the cheerleading captain whose every mediocre achievement was celebrated as though she'd cured cancer. Her beauty and charisma were the family trophies, proudly displayed at every social event. Josh, the youngest and only son, could do no wrong in their eyes despite his reckless behavior and constant academic failures. Then there was me, quiet, studious, reliable Lauren. Straight A's were met with dismissive nods and faint praise. "It's expected," my mother would sigh, barely looking up from her phone. When I won a prestigious statewide architectural design competition at 17, my parents skipped the ceremony because Allison had a dance recital. The hurt from their absence lingered deeply, carving an emotional scar that never fully healed. Throughout my adolescence, I struggled desperately for scraps of attention, believing academic success might win me the same affection so effortlessly given to my siblings. Yet no matter my accomplishments, the shadow of their favoritism only grew darker. Each family photograph told the story clearly. Allison and Josh always front and center, glowing under my parents' affectionate gazes while I lingered awkwardly at the edges, an afterthought. When college approached, Allison was swiftly enrolled in an expensive private university. My parents spared no expense, even though she barely scraped through each semester. Meanwhile, I earned scholarships to a public university, working late nights at coffee shops and bookstores to cover remaining expenses. My graduation day, summa cum laude, should have been a proud moment. Yet my seat in the audience remained vacant as my family chose to deal with yet another emergency involving Josh's reckless decisions. By the time I established my own successful architectural firm, Bennett Designs, the pattern was deeply entrenched. Phone calls from my parents came frequently, always cloaked in a thin veil of manufactured urgency. An overdue mortgage, a sudden hospital bill, Josh's latest business failure. And every time I caved, convincing myself that this was what family did. They helped each other, no matter the cost. But the cost wasn't just financial, it was emotional. I became the forgotten checkbook, summoned when needed, disregarded otherwise. Holidays came and went, marked by posts on social media of luxurious family gatherings I was never invited to. The loneliness ached, yet I continued to pay, hoping one day I'd finally be enough. As I drove home from Eden Estate that humiliating evening, tears blurred my vision, but clarity began to sharpen in my heart. Years of subtle neglect and exploitation suddenly crystallized into a single brutal truth. My family didn't love me for who I was. They only loved what I could provide. The revelation hurt deeply, but it also planted the seeds of courage I would need for the journey ahead. Because finally, after so many years in the shadows, I was ready to step into the light, no matter what it took. After college, I built Bennett Designs from the ground up, pouring countless hours into my passion for innovative architecture. My work was recognized throughout Chicago for its creativity and precision, but deep down, no professional success could erase the emptiness left by my family's neglect. While my firm thrived, the phone calls from home intensified. Every ring, every message, every voicemail carried the weight of my family's insatiable financial demands. My parents' requests became increasingly frequent and costly. Late mortgage payments, extravagant vacations they couldn't afford, sudden home repairs. Each request carefully masked as temporary loans or emergency support. And each time my desperate desire for acceptance compelled me to open my wallet without question. Josh was another drain entirely. My brother had a knack for disastrous business ideas, each one worse than the last. First was the gourmet taco truck abandoned after 2 months. Next, an overpriced clothing line that collapsed within weeks, leaving me thousands of dollars poorer. Most recently, a trendy nightclub venture that never even made it past a glitzy launch party. A party I unknowingly funded. Allison, too, leaned heavily on my generosity. Her lavish wedding at a 5-star lakeside resort drained my savings significantly. I was expected to foot the bill for an extravagant bridal shower and bachelorette party for 20 of her friends, each dollar chipping away at my dignity. When I hesitated, my mother's voice hissed over the phone, thick with emotional manipulation. Allison only gets married once, Lauren. Don't ruin her special day with your selfishness. That pattern of subtle threats and guilt trips was their specialty, always leaving me feeling somehow at fault. Holidays became a cruel joke. Social media filled with family vacations, extravagant dinners, and joyful celebrations I'd financed but was never invited to. Each smiling family photo stabbed deeply, leaving fresh wounds on my already scarred heart. One particularly lonely Christmas, sitting alone in my lavish but empty apartment, I found myself scrolling bitterly through my family's cheerful posts from an Aspen ski resort. My eyes lingered on their joyful smiles, fully funded by my generosity. I stared numbly at the images, feeling invisible yet again. A tear fell silently, tracing the cold reality that my money had purchased their happiness, but not my inclusion. Still, I justified it, convinced this was simply how love worked. That maybe, eventually, they'd recognize my worth beyond financial contributions. But after the humiliating rejection at Eden Estate, something inside me shattered irreversibly. Their cruel treatment was finally clear as day. My family's love had never been unconditional. It was merely transactional, contingent entirely upon my ability to finance their lavish lives. As I pulled into my driveway after that devastating evening, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened, a storm of emotion brewed within me. Sadness, anger, and finally, resolve. The painful realization began to transform into an unwavering determination to end this toxic cycle once and for all. No longer would I allow myself to be reduced to mere dollar signs in the eyes of those who were supposed to love me most. I was done being invisible. And this time, I was determined to ensure they'd see me clearly, no matter the cost. 3 weeks before the humiliating scene at Eden Estate, my mother had called unexpectedly, her voice sweeter than honey. "Lauren, sweetheart," she began gently, "your father and I are celebrating our 35th anniversary. We've decided to host something truly special at Eden Estate." My heart swelled with cautious hope. Maybe this time, I thought, I'd finally be treated like a daughter, rather than just an ATM. "That sounds wonderful, Mom," I replied sincerely. "Tell me how I can help." Without hesitation, she smoothly replied, "Well, dear, there's the small matter of the deposit for the venue, just $20,000. I know we can count on you, Lauren. We always do." The gentle warmth in her tone felt foreign, unsettling, but I ignored the whisper of doubt. Despite the substantial amount, I quickly agreed, hoping desperately this would earn me genuine inclusion in this important milestone. "Of course, Mom," I reassured her, swallowing the lingering unease. "I'd be happy to help." The following days were strangely silent. Any attempts to discuss details about the event were brushed aside with vague replies. "Oh, don't worry, honey, just leave it to us." Or, "Focus on your important work, Lauren." We know how busy you are. Though suspicious, I ignored my instincts and instead turned my attention to preparations. I carefully selected a sophisticated designer gown, a sleek navy blue dress tailored perfectly to flatter my figure. Alongside this extravagant purchase, I chose a matching pair of Swiss watches, knowing my father admired their refined elegance. The watches alone cost $5,000, but I didn't care. I was desperate to finally witness genuine appreciation in their eyes. 2 weeks before the celebration, I called my sister Allison, hoping for some clarity on the evening's specifics. The moment she answered, surprise edged her voice. "Oh, Lauren, I didn't expect you to actually come. Aren't you usually working?" A sharp pang twisted in my chest. "Why wouldn't I come? I funded the event," I said softly, uncertainty creeping into my voice. "Right," she murmured awkwardly, quickly changing the subject. "Anyway, it's black tie formal. You should at least look the part." Her patronizing tone stung, yet I remained silent, swallowing my humiliation. The night of the event arrived. Eden Estate gleamed beautifully beneath Chicago's skyline, bathed in soft golden lights. Butterflies fluttered nervously in my stomach, my hope rising as I stepped confidently from my car. For once, I allowed myself to believe that perhaps my family would finally embrace me. Not just my wallet, but the scene that unfolded shattered those fragile dreams. My father's cold rejection, my mother's indifferent glance, and my siblings' averted eyes left me reeling. The crushing humiliation cut deeply, destroying any lingering illusions. As I drove away from Eden Estate, my carefully wrapped gift sitting silently beside me, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional, personal, and devastatingly clear. They'd never intended for me to be part of this celebration. I was nothing more than their silent investor, funding a lavish lifestyle I would never be welcome to enjoy. In that dark moment, gripping the steering wheel with bitter tears streaming down my face, I finally realized the harsh truth. I had spent a lifetime paying for love that was never mine to receive. That painful clarity brought with it a new strength, an unshakable resolve that would soon become my family's worst nightmare. Because now, the quiet, compliant Lauren they thought they knew was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to reclaim everything she'd ever lost, starting with her self-respect. The evening of the anniversary dinner arrived under a rare, cloudless Chicago sky. The streets sparkled in the city's golden twilight as I stepped out of the car, clutching the silver-wrapped gift box in my hands. My heels clicked against the polished stone as I entered Eden Estate's marble foyer, each step echoing with hope and dread. A young hostess in a black satin blazer greeted me with a polished smile. "Good evening. How may I help you?" "I'm here for the Bennett anniversary celebration," I said confidently, returning her smile. She tapped her tablet, scrolling through the guest list. Her brows drew together slightly. "Your name, ma'am?" "Lauren Bennett. I'm their daughter." A pause. More scrolling. Her expression shifted to something tighter, strained. "One moment, please." She turned and disappeared through an ornate double door, leaving me standing under a chandelier that glowed too brightly for comfort. I turned slightly, catching glimpses through the open door. The dining room shimmered with white roses, floating candles, and the gentle clink of champagne flutes. Familiar voices echoed inside. I spotted my Aunt Margaret mid-laugh and my cousin Ethan taking photos of a towering silver and white cake. The hostess returned moments later with another woman in a navy pantsuit. "I'm the event coordinator," she said kindly but carefully. "I understand there's been a misunderstanding. Your name is not on the approved guest list." A slow chill ran through my chest. That's not possible. I'm their daughter. I paid the $20,000 deposit for this event. The coordinator offered an apologetic nod. "Yes, we do have record of your payment, but the final list was approved by Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, and you're not included." I stood motionless, humiliated, the gift box growing heavier in my arms by the second. "I'd like to speak with my parents," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice from trembling. She nodded and slipped through the door again. As I waited, more guests walked past, some casting curious glances, others avoiding eye contact entirely. Then I saw her, Allison. She was dressed in a floor-length crystal gown, her blonde hair styled perfectly, lips painted in the same sharp red she used for cutting comments. She saw me. Our eyes locked. She looked away and quickened her pace. Josh followed moments later, arm linked with yet another new girlfriend. His expression when he saw me was sheepish, maybe even guilty. But he said nothing, just kept walking. 15 excruciating minutes passed before the doors opened again. This time, it wasn't the coordinator. It was them, my parents. My mother stepped forward in a sparkling silver gown, every inch the queen of the night. My father walked beside her, glass of champagne in hand. They looked annoyed. "Lauren," my mother hissed. Her smile stretched painfully tight. "What are you doing here?" "What am I?" My voice cracked. "I paid for this party. I bought you a gift. Why am I not on the list?" My father glanced around, clearly aware of the eyes watching. "Lauren, we appreciate your contribution, but this is a private family event." "I am family." "You know what we mean?" My mother snapped. "You're always working. You've made it clear where your priorities are." "I bought these for you," I said, holding out the box, hands shaking. "It's a matching set of watches." "You've always wanted one." "We don't have time for this," my father muttered. Then he turned, cold, dismissive, and gestured over his shoulder. "Get someone to remove her." A security guard approached cautiously. I stared at my father, waiting for him to look at me. He didn't. Instead, he took another sip of champagne and spoke the words that would haunt me forever. "Get this woman out of here. We don't need beggars at our event." The word hit me like a blow to the chest. Beggars. I didn't resist as the guard gently touched my arm. I barely heard him apologize. All I could feel was the crushing weight of betrayal, of being discarded, of being nothing more than a bank account to the people who were supposed to love me. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of my mother laughing. Laughing, before turning back to the party, as if I had never existed. The elevator ride down felt like descending into the deepest part of myself. I held the untouched gift box tightly in my lap, its weight a cruel reminder of the role I had been forced into. Giver, provider, silent benefactor. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. The years of quiet tolerance cracked, and beneath them, something sharp and unyielding began to rise. I drove home in a haze, my face burning with shame and fury. My father's words echoed over and over. "We don't need beggars at our event." That night, I sat alone in my sleek, glass-walled apartment, the Chicago skyline glowing behind me. I changed out of the designer dress and stared at my reflection. Mascara streaked, eyes swollen, heart hollow. Then I picked up my phone. "Lauren?" My best friend Mia's voice answered groggily. "Is everything okay? How was the dinner?" "They kicked me out," I whispered. A long pause. "Wait, what?" "They had security escort me. My own father called me a beggar." By the time Mia arrived 20 minutes later, I had poured 2 glasses of wine and set the gift box on the kitchen island, unopened. She pulled me into a long hug. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. From the vague invitations to Allison's cold stare and the crushing moment at the entrance. She listened in stunned silence, eyes filling with a quiet, righteous rage. "This isn't just favoritism," she said finally. "This is emotional and financial abuse." I blinked. "Abuse?" "Yes. You've been bankrolling their lives for years, Lauren. They treat you like a credit card, not a daughter. You deserve better." That night, I barely slept. But I wasn't exhausted. I was calculating. The next morning, still in my robe, I sat down with my laptop and opened my personal financial software. Every transfer, every expense, every loan to my family had been logged. Out of habit, not bitterness. But now those numbers felt like evidence. With each click, the reality came into focus. Mortgage payments, $78,000. Allison's wedding expenses, $30,200. Josh's 3 failed businesses, $94,500. Medical bills, vacations, emergencies, $129,000. Total over the past decade, $332,700. My stomach turned. That was more than the cost of the penthouse I was sitting in. I could have built an entire school, I muttered aloud. Mia returned that afternoon, and when I showed her the spreadsheet, she gasped, "Lauren, this is criminal." "That's not even counting the upcoming charges," I added, pulling up recent activity on my credit card. They charged me another $4,000 for extra catering and alcohol. And look, $3,500 for an Alaskan cruise. That's the trip I booked for them months ago. They never mentioned it. My voice was flat now, calm, focused. Mia looked at me, something admiring in her gaze. "What are you going to do?" I met her eyes, fire beginning to burn in my chest. "I'm going to cancel every single thing. I'm going to cut off the funding. And then I'm going to show them exactly who they've been stealing from." I picked up my phone and texted Chloe, my longtime assistant at the firm. "Can you come by the apartment? I need your help. Personal." Within an hour, Chloe sat across from me, no questions asked. I showed her the spreadsheet, the credit card charges, and the running list of future obligations. "I want to know what I'm legally obligated to fulfill," I said, "and what I can walk away from." She nodded, efficient and sharp. "I'll call my friend at a family law office. Let's get you out of this the smart way." Minutes later, we were on speaker with a lawyer who confirmed what I suspected. I couldn't undo the $20,000 deposit for the event, but all future bookings and gifts, cruise, Disney trip, Josh's business transfer, club membership renewals, could be canceled unless there were signed agreements. There weren't. By that evening, Chloe and I had a plan in place. I canceled the cruise. I called Disney to cancel the resort booking for Allison's family. I froze the account that was funding Josh's next project. I called the country club and withdrew the family's membership renewal. Then, I took it one step further. I redirected the $20,000 event deposit, non-refundable, to a local shelter for women escaping financial abuse. I made the donation anonymously. It felt poetic. That night, I slept with my phone off and my heart finally quiet. They would find out tomorrow. And when they did, it would be the first time in their lives that my silence no longer equaled submission. The next morning, just after 7 a.m., the pounding on my front door jolted me awake. I had expected calls, maybe angry texts, but not this. Not them showing up in person. I threw on a robe and walked quietly to the door, peeking through the peephole. There they were. My parents, Allison, Josh, all of them. Their faces were twisted with rage. My father's cheeks flushed a deep red. My mother's jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscles twitch. Josh was pacing behind them like a caged animal, and Allison stood with her arms crossed, lips curled in disgust. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "What the hell is wrong with you?" My father barked, barging inside without waiting. The others followed behind him, flooding my quiet apartment with fury. "Lauren, are you having some kind of episode?" My mother demanded. "You canceled the Disney trip without saying a word. The kids are devastated." "The cruise was refunded," Josh added, his voice sharp with panic. "I had suppliers counting on me. The account is frozen. Why would you do that?" I said nothing. My father loomed over me, his voice lower, darker. "Whatever game you're playing, it ends now. You will undo all of this. You hear me?" I didn't flinch. I walked past him calmly, picked up the printed spreadsheet Chloe and I had compiled, and placed it on the dining table between us. "What's that?" Allison sneered. "Everything I've ever given you," I said quietly. "Every payment, every bailout, every so-called gift." Josh grabbed the sheet and scanned the numbers. His eyes widened. "This can't be right." "It's accurate," I interrupted. "You all took over $330,000 from me in the past 10 years. Add another $62,000 in upcoming charges I just canceled. That's nearly $400,000. All of it was documented. All of it from me." "You're our daughter," my mother said, voice rising. "That's what family does for each other." "No," I said calmly. "Family doesn't call their daughter a beggar at an event she paid for." My father's jaw clenched. "I recorded it," I added, opening my phone and pressing play. The audio was clear. The muffled music in the background, my father's sharp voice, unmistakable. "Get this woman out of here." We don't need beggars at our event. Silence fell across the room. Even Allison couldn't maintain eye contact. Lauren, my mother said finally, her voice trembling. He was upset. He didn't mean it. Yes, he did. You all did. You didn't want me there. You never wanted me anywhere. Unless I was paying for it. Josh shook his head. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. We've all made sacrifices for you, too. Name one, I said flatly. He opened his mouth, closed it. Allison stepped forward, hands on her hips. So that's it? You're just cutting us off? I nodded. Completely. No more loans. No more vacations. No more funding businesses that fail. I will never pay another dime for people who see me as a resource, not as family. My father's voice dropped an octave. If you do this, you're out of the family. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt relief. Good, I said. My mother gasped. How dare you? How dare you? I replied. You raised me to believe that love had to be earned with money. You taught me that being valuable meant being useful. You exploited me for years and then threw me away when I wasn't needed. You need help, Allison muttered. You're unstable. No, I said. I'm free. I walked over to the door and opened it wide. You can leave now. For a moment, they didn't move. Then my father stormed out, silent with fury. My mother lingered, looking as if she might cry, but didn't. Josh followed, grumbling under his breath. Only Allison paused. I hope someday you realize how selfish this is, she said. I smiled coldly. I hope someday you realize what love looks like when it's not tied to a bank account. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind them, and I stood alone in the silence, my heart pounding. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. The days following the confrontation were strangely quiet. No angry calls, no guilt-laced voicemails, no crying messages from my mother. I knew better than to think it was over. They were simply regrouping, trying to find new ways to break through my boundaries. But this time, I was ready. I returned to work with sharper focus than ever. Without the constant drain of last-minute wire transfers, unpaid bills, and financial emergencies, my firm thrived. I landed 2 new high-profile projects and hired another architect to join my growing team. My clients noticed the difference too. I was lighter, more present, more grounded in my own power. My therapist, Dr. Lindstrom, helped me unpack what years of transactional love had done to my sense of identity. You weren't born believing love had to be earned, she said gently during one session. You were trained to think that way. Now, you're unlearning it. Still, there were moments when I felt the ache of loss. Not of their affection. I had long stopped believing it was real, but of the idea of family. The fantasy that someday I'd finally be good enough to be loved for who I was. That fantasy died at Eden Estate, and I didn't mourn it. I buried it. One chilly October afternoon, I received an email from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My Aunt Marianne, my mom's younger sister. Subject line, she would be so proud of you. The email was short. Marianne had seen the photos from the anniversary event. She heard how I was treated. I stayed silent too long, she wrote, but I know Eleanor wouldn't have. She would have stood beside you. I blinked. My grandmother. She was the only family member who ever saw me, not the paycheck, not the professional, but me. Before she passed, we had shared Sunday morning tea and crossword puzzles. I hadn't realized how deeply I missed her until that moment. The next day, a courier arrived at my office with a thick envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from my grandmother Eleanor, dated 7 years prior. Alongside it was a bank statement for a trust in my name. Untouched, slowly accruing interest. The balance, $175,000. My breath caught as I read her words. My dearest Lauren, I've seen how hard you work and how little you're appreciated. I know your parents don't see you the way I do, but I need you to know. You are enough. Not because of what you give, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. I've left this for you to use when the day comes that you finally choose yourself. I hope that day comes soon. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor. Tears blurred the paper. Not just because of the money, but because someone, finally, had believed in me without strings attached, without expectation, without payment due. I used part of that money to set up a foundation in Eleanor's name, a grant program for young women rebuilding their lives after financial abuse, whether from families, partners, or anyone who tried to tie love to a price tag. The rest I kept untouched. Not as backup, but as a reminder that love could be quiet, private, and still deeply powerful. Thanksgiving arrived weeks later. Instead of sitting alone, I hosted my first ever Friendsgiving. Mia, Chloe, my therapist, my new architect, and even Aunt Marianne came. We laughed, we cooked, we burned a turkey, and ordered backup pizza. There was no performance, no status, no gold-plated cutlery or designer gowns. Just warmth. Just truth. Toward the end of the night, as we sat surrounded by empty pie tins and half-finished wine glasses, Marianne handed me one final envelope. Your grandmother left this with me, too. She said I'd know when to give it to you. Inside was a simple photo. Me at 17, standing in front of my high school with a medal around my neck, grinning ear to ear. On the back, Eleanor had written, "You've always been the strongest one. One day, you'll believe it too." And that day had finally come. I haven't spoken to my parents or siblings since that morning in my apartment. According to distant relatives, they've downsized their house, cut back on luxuries, and most shockingly, started working regular jobs again. The fallout was their burden to carry, not mine. Some nights, I still get tempted to check Allison's Instagram or listen to one of my mother's voicemails. But then I remember the silence that followed after they lost access to my money. Not a single apology, not one admission of wrongdoing, only rage that their power was gone. That told me everything I needed to know. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the overlooked daughter or the family bank account. I see a woman who finally chose herself. A woman who stopped begging for love and started building a life that didn't need anyone's permission to exist. If you've ever been made to feel like you had to buy your place in a family, I want you to know something. You don't. Your worth doesn't live in your wallet. It lives in your soul. And the day you choose yourself, that's the day everything changes.